Celtic.
Also to come tonight, the sands of time. More from our series on Scotland's disappearing shores.
Join me down on the beach in North Uist, where local people are engaged in a battle with the elements to try and record and preserve their ancient history.
And why not join me?
31-year-old John Saunders from Cumbernauld will face 2 counts of violent disorder. Now, throughout this week, we're looking at the threat to some of our most precious historic sites around Scotland's coast. Thousands of archaeological remains could disappear due to coastal erosion, and local communities are doing what they can to excavate and record them. Well, Craig Anderson is on North Uist tonight for us in the Western Isle. So how's it looking there, Craig?
Well, Jackie, you know, at times today it seemed like this. Like some tropical island paradise, but none of us should be fooled. The weather here can be treacherous. In fact, in 2005, several members of the same family died in a storm which caused widespread damage here in the islands. And that storm also tore away part of the beach here to reveal a 2,000-year-old structure. Now, archaeologists have called that a wheelhouse. It's not because the head wheels here. It's because it's a round structure with internal walls that radiate out like the spokes of a wheel. And the kind of things that they've been finding here, fragments of pottery, little shards of bone like these, rudimentary tools, are allowing them to build up a picture of what life was like for these Iron Age islanders. Scraping away layers of sand and shingle to reveal the hidden history beneath. There's clear evidence of an important structure here, and remnants which act as a window on the past.
We can take all the things we find here and try and reconstruct from that debris what life was like, so we can tell what sort of things people were eating from the animal bones that we find, that sort of thing, the types of pots they were using.
We may think of the Outer Hebrides today as remote and sparsely populated, but the evidence from remains like these up and down this coastline shows that there were busy, thriving communities here.
If we consider these places remote now, the Iron Age would have been very different. This has probably been part of a very busy seaway that would have included perhaps the Northern Isles, people coming over from Scandinavia. I mean, this would have been a very busy area, and perhaps rather than being remote, this would have been the centre of the Iron Age world.
The problem is that another storm like the one 4 years ago could wipe away everything that's here.
There was an archaeological dig here in 1986, and since then, for example, people think that around 35 metres of land has been lost from the Balja coastline. So fairly dramatic, really.
That's why the work being done here is vital. If sites like these can't be protected, then the next best thing is to excavate them, record what's here, and then leave them to the mercy of the elements. And you can see what these elements are actually doing. Huge chunks have actually come away from this banking here, and underneath there may be precious remains. And that's why groups of volunteers and archaeologists here in Uist and around the country are engaged in a race against time to try and record these artefacts, these structures, before the sea wipes out the past forever. Jackie.
Thank you very much, Craig, from a lovely location. Now, some of the other stories across Scotland this week.
Goodbye.
Welcome to Reporting Scotland. Tonight, thousands more join the dole queue. Unemployment in Scotland has risen by more than 2/3 in the past year, and there's more gloom over the economic outlook. Just days after being diagnosed with cancer, former Celtic striker John Hartson undergoes emergency brain surgery.
Everybody's heartbroken with the news. He's been such a good footballer and a great ambassador for Celtic.
Also to come tonight, the sands of time. More from our series on Scotland's disappearing shores.
Join me down on the beach in North Uist, where local people are engaged in a battle with the elements to try and record and preserve their ancient history.
And why not join me here at Turnberry on the eve of this year's Open Golf Championship?
Unemployment in Scotland has risen by more than 2/3 in the past year, and the latest jobs figures out today show 35,000 more people are looking for work. And we've got evidence that Scots are particularly gloomy about the prospects of getting out of this recession. Our economy editor Douglas Fraser is here to share the misery with us. Douglas.
Jackie, there's no surprise that unemployment is on the rise at this point in the recession. The good news, if you can call it that, is that the dole queue is only growing slowly. 3,000 more people were claiming job seekers allowance last month when compared with May, bringing the total to 128,000. That's lower than expected. But there's a broader count measuring the numbers looking for work over 3 months to May, and that's more sharply up by 35,000 to a total of 179,000. On both counts, Scotland has lower unemployment than the UK average, so it's better off, or perhaps less bad. But since the record low point this time last year, it has seen a more rapid rise. That broader count of those seeking work is up by 69% in a year. Now, these unemployment figures are not just about percentages, of course, they're about people.
In Kilmarnock, for instance, where 700 whisky bottling workers face the sack and where the First Minister today offered support. Job losses put the heat on politicians to provide answers, such as new work being sparked by new green industries.
Well, it's essential that the government is active during the recession, so we're investing more in big projects, we're changing the way in which we spend money so that we can support people keep their jobs, and the measures that we've taken are estimated to have saved 500,000 people their jobs. But there's more that we can do, so we're about to make further announcements on how to support those people who have been out of work for a while, who are under 25, to get back into a job.
The view from this Lanarkshire job centre was gloomy.
I've been unemployed now for about 6 weeks and there's no vacancies whatsoever to suit my job.
It just shows lots of people are still out of work. I'm still out of work. I graduated in September and I've worked for 7 weeks since then.
I was working in call centres, that was really handy, but it was, due to the recession, a lot of customers weren't buying anything.
And businesses hanging on to staff for now aren't sure how much longer they can do so.
The fear is that unless something happens by the end of the year, beginning of next year, some businesses are going to have to think really long and hard about how many staff they employ and whether they're actually going to continue to trade.
The pessimism seems quite widespread. A recession poll for the BBC, taking the pulse of public opinion, found 40% of people across Britain are concerned about losing their jobs, and that fear looks stronger in Scotland. 2 out of 3 of us know someone who's lost their job. A third of people in Britain think the economy isn't going to start growing anytime soon. That's worse in Scotland. What about your own finances improving? Well, Britain is equally split on that, but by a wide margin, the Scots questioned in this survey see things getting worse. We're getting more price conscious and cutting down on impulse buys. That's particularly true of women. But if you want some rays of sunny optimism, this poll makes it look like you have to head south to find it. Jackie.
Thank you, I think, Douglas. And there'll be more on those unemployment figures on Newsnight Scotland at 11 o'clock on BBC Two. Gordon Brewer will be examining the significance of the different figures north and south of the border. The former Celtic player John Hartson, who's battling cancer, has undergone emergency surgery. It was revealed earlier this week that he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, which had spread to his brain. It's also now been found in his lungs. Friends have told Reporting Scotland the striker will face the disease with the same determination that made him such a success on the football pitch. Raymond Buchanan reports.
John Hartson. This was the last time John Hartson appeared at the stadium he called home for 5 years. The striker returned to Celtic Park to take part in the Tommy Burns tribute match just a few weeks ago, and he showed the fans he hadn't lost his touch. John Hartson. But tonight the 34-year-old is critically ill inside this Swansea hospital. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer on Sunday and doctors revealed it had spread to his brain. Today he underwent surgery to relieve pressure inside his head. Medics also announced the disease had now reached his lungs. Tonight, former cancer sufferer and Celtic player Alan Stubbs told Reporting Scotland he was hopeful his friend would recover.
It's probably all happened so quickly that he probably hasn't had time to dwell on it. When you do sit down and take stock of it, you know, your first thought is, oh God, knowing John, he will treat this the way he did football, and that was 100%. And, you know, fingers crossed, I think I speak on behalf of everyone, that, you know, we wish John a speedy and healthy recovery from this.
John Hartson lines up the shot! John Hartson with the goal! And from the Celtic fans who watched the striker score more than 150 goals, this reaction.
Everybody's heartbroken with the news. He's been such a good footballer and a great ambassador for Celtic.
Not just Celtic fans and former players and things, everybody that supported him. Hopefully we'll get better.
Somebody that's so well liked and all that, it's broke a lot of hearts, that. It really is really sad.
Most people now survive testicular cancer. The father of three's family say they've drawn strength from the goodwill and support John Hartson has received. Raymond Buchanan, Reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
You're watching Reporting Scotland from the BBC. Still to come before 7 o'clock. Why picnicking tourists have provoked anger over a lack of respect for the dead at Culloden battlefield. And it might break your back, but it'll save your pocket. Find out why more people are picking their own fruit.
In sport, I'll be previewing the Open Golf Championship, which starts here at Turnberry tomorrow, and I'll have news of a possible big-name departure from Ibrox, so do come back and join me soon.
A small Highland town has become the unlikely location for Scotland's first laboratory producing the deadly drug crystal meth. Today, a 45-year-old property developer from Forres was jailed for 4 years for producing the Class A drug that police believe could become as big a problem in the UK as crack cocaine. Colin White reports.
Paul Ross left court in Elgin this afternoon to begin his 4-year sentence. His case has made legal history. His house in Forres was the first crystal meth lab found in Scotland. Crystal meth, or methylamphetamine, is made from a number of chemicals. As these pictures from the United States show, the drug can have a devastating effect. It's a Class A drug, highly addictive. Illicit drug labs are a big problem in many other countries, including Australia and America. So far, not here.
Police spent 4 days here in Forres searching Ross's house in May last year. They'd found that he'd ordered chemicals online, which could be used in the manufacture of crystal meth.
There's been limited intelligence reporting on this drug. However, it frequently gets confused with another drug, crystal MDMA. I am quite content at this moment in time that there is very little, if any, of this drug available in the Grampian region.
The court heard Ross was now drug-free, but he had been a long-standing amphetamine addict. He'd manufactured the drug for his own personal use, and there was no suggestion he'd planned to distribute it to a wider market.
But Sheriff Noel McPartlin told Ross the introduction of crystal meth to the area was alarming, and a clear signal had to be sent out that it would not be tolerated. He jailed Ross for 4 years. Colin White, Reporting Scotland, Elgin.
2 more men are to be charged over the violent clashes that surrounded last year's UEFA Cup final between Rangers and Zenit St Petersburg in Manchester. The Crown Prosecution Service said Michael Hindle, who's 20, from Chorley in Lancashire, will be charged with violent disorder. 31-year-old John Saunders from Cumbernauld will face 2 counts of violent disorder. Now, throughout this week, we're looking at the threat to some of our most precious historic sites around Scotland's coast. Thousands of archaeological remains could disappear due to coastal erosion, and local communities are doing what they can to excavate and record them. Well, Craig Anderson is on North Uist tonight for us in the Western Isles. So how's it looking there, Craig?
Well, Jackie, you know, at times today it seemed like this. Like some tropical island paradise, but none of us should be fooled. The weather here can be treacherous. In fact, in 2005, several members of the same family died in a storm which caused widespread damage here in the islands. And that storm also tore away part of the beach here to reveal a 2,000-year-old structure. Now, archaeologists have called that a wheelhouse. It's not because they need wheels here. It's because it's a round structure with internal walls that radiate out like the spokes of a wheel. And the kind of things that they've been finding here, fragments of pottery, little shards of bone like these, rudimentary tools, are allowing them to build up a picture of what life was like for these Iron Age islanders. Scraping away layers of sand and shingle to reveal the hidden history beneath. There's clear evidence of an important structure here, and remnants which act as a window on the past.
We can take all the things we find here and try and reconstruct from that debris what life was like, so we can tell what sort of things people were eating from the animal bones that we find, that sort of thing, the types of pots they were using.
We may think of the Outer Hebrides today as remote and sparsely populated, but the evidence from remains like these up and down this coastline shows that there were busy, thriving communities here.
If we consider these places remote now, the Iron Age would have been very different. This has probably been part of a very busy seaway that would have included perhaps the Northern Isles, people coming over from Scandinavia. I mean, this would have been a very busy area, and perhaps rather than being remote, this would have been the centre of the Iron Age world.
The problem is that another storm like the one 4 years ago could wipe away everything that's here.
There was an archaeological dig here in 1986, and since then, for example, people think that around 35 metres of land has been lost from the Balja coastline. So fairly dramatic, really.
That's why the work being done here is vital. If sites like these can't be protected, then the next best thing is to excavate them, record what's here, and then leave them to the mercy of the elements. And you can see what these elements are actually doing. Huge chunks have actually come away from this banking here, and underneath them may be precious remains. And that's why groups of volunteers and archaeologists here in US and around the country are engaged in a race against time to try and record these artefacts, these structures, before the sea wipes out the past forever. Jackie.
Thank you very much, Craig, from a lovely location. Now, some of the other stories across Scotland this Wednesday. The prospect of industrial action by Edinburgh bin men this summer during the city's festival season is a step closer. The union Unite has formally told the council it's to ballot its members on a possible strike. If passed, industrial action would begin sometime around the middle of August, which is one of the capital's busiest tourist months. The Scottish fishing industry has reacted angrily to comments made by Prince Charles about overfishing. Speaking at a reception in London last night, the Prince said that scientists had shown the world was facing a nightmare collapse in stocks. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation say the comments were outdated and failed to recognise the efforts of the Scottish fleets. The Culloden battlefield, where hundreds of Highland clansmen were slaughtered, is in danger of becoming little more than a big picnic site. Well, that's according to a group of local historians. Now, the owners of what is Britain's last battleground are to put up signs urging more respect, as Ian MacDonald reports.
Yes, it's a Scotch egg, but it's just won its place in history.
So once they cut the trees down, it was fine.
At this time of year, tourists flock in their hundreds every day to Culloden battlefield, where the Jacobites were finally routed by government troops in 1746, and Bonnie Prince Charlie decided to holiday abroad for a while. As some of the displays in the National Trust for Scotland's multi-million-pound visitor centre might remind you, this was a scene of bloody carnage. But on a weekend visit, Inverness man Alistair McNeill discovered not everybody remembers that.
We were just coming back from visiting the Campbellstone over there, and I noticed a family who were sat sprawled all over that stone there, having a picnic. The father was leaning in the back of the headstone, munching on a Scotch egg with a cigarette in his hand. They had two dogs who were kind of wandering around as well, and they were just sprawled as if they were having a nice picnic. And I thought it was just horrific, absolutely horrific.
Visitors today echoed his anger.
I'd like to think that the people probably didn't know any better, but I think anyone seen a grave and a grave marker and a mound, you know, basic decorum, I think anywhere would suggest, no matter where you came from in the world, that, you know, you don't have a picnic there.
A lot of people that visit here clearly have lost family members. Many years ago, I realised that, but you know, it's a sacred place, really, and should be given due respect.
So now the National Trust's to put up signs asking for more respect and less Scotch eggs. But on the last great battlefield, perhaps now a place of honour for a humble lunchtime snack. Ian MacDonald, reporting Scotland, Culloden.
Berry farmers are reporting a rise in their pick-your-own-fruit businesses. Now, farmers say the increase is due to the recession, the good weather and people becoming more food conscious. Maura Kinnerborough reports.
A tradition which seems to be making a comeback. There's been a rise in people picking their own berries.
Pick Your Own's been tremendous. It's up 30% on last year. Okay, last year was a poor summer, but historically it's still well up from the normal. And I think it's just because people are maybe staying at home, looking to save a bit of money, and it's also a great day out.
Wow, look at that one! Farmers say the good weather's helped too, and more people want to know more about their food.
We like to buy, don't we? We like to buy our food like this because we know where it's come from, and there's no pesticides here. It's all fresh and freshly picked.
It's much better because it's a bit funner rather than just taking them from the supermarket, and they normally taste a lot nicer.
You know where they're grown, they're fresh, and I do make a lot of jam with them as well. The strawberries and the raspberries, and they are a little bit cheaper than the shops.
A lot of pickers come out for the day from the towns.
Picking berries is often remembered with great fondness, though as a job it was considered hard, poorly paid work. These days polytunnels help protect crops and extend the growing season. Farmers welcome renewed interest in the pick your own side of the business, but warn the soft fruit sector faces tough challenges too. New European rules are being phased in, restricting pesticides. At the Scottish Crop Research Institute, they're developing new berry varieties and non-chemical controls to try and help farmers cope.
It has potentially very challenging effects on the future methods that we use for fruit production, but there are solutions. We can breed resistant varieties that actually don't need pesticides, and we're also looking at integrated pest management techniques within the fruit group here.
But no, the weight, are you okay with that?
If alternatives to pesticides cost more, as some farmers predict, then the price of berries will rise in years to come, and Pick Your Own could become even more popular. Maura Kinneborough reporting, Scotland, South Queensferry.
They should weigh the children, never mind the berries. Now, in a moment, we'll be going back to David Curry at Turnberry as the Open prepares to get underway tomorrow. But concern is growing for the future of some Scottish golf clubs. Falling membership is threatening their very existence, and that could hamper the prospects of our future stars. Here's Phil Goodlad.
Another round underway at Dollar Golf Club.
Chop. Chop.
They've been playing here since 1890. Perhaps, though, not for much longer.
The recession has caused us to lose 25 gentlemen members at the start of this season. We've not had a big membership, and that's put a huge dent in our finances, about 15,000 down from our budget. We don't have reserves, and we simply couldn't continue losing money like that. I do know from other clubs that they are suffering the same, in fact some cases worse than us.
Now, the problem here at Dollar Golf Club can be seen right across the country. 250,000 of us have membership for Scotland's 580-odd golf clubs. But with falling membership comes falling revenue, and the fear is that with margins being squeezed ever tighter, well, some of our golf clubs could disappear altogether.
It is a real concern, and it's something that we're taking steps to address. There are several positive measures that we can put in place. There's a real gap between sort of 20 and 45 years of age, and that's really where we need to get people playing golf, but joining a golf club. That's the critical element.
That target age group vital for the future of golf clubs. Clubs that can help the next generation of Scottish players.
Dollar's where I learned to play golf, so, you know, a chance for Robert, who's 10 years younger than I am, to do what I did. If Dollar closes and other clubs like it, then there's going to be no chance for younger players to, you know, practice on places like that, or you need them in golf.
Look at the scenery. This is an absolutely wonderful facility. It's walking distance from the centre of the village. It's been a playground for the children of the village for 120 years, and we absolutely don't want that to stop.
Fundraising now the hope for Dollar Golf Club and others like it. It's a world away from the riches of Open Week at Turnberry. Phil Goodlad, reporting Scotland, Dollar.
Well, let's go now to David Curry, who's at Turnberry.
Yes, Jackie, I feel a bit like a blot on the landscape here on the Ayrshire coast. It is one of the most picturesque settings for a sporting event in the world, as you can probably see. And a little earlier, I took a quick burrel round the golf course, so let's find out how I got on and who I met. This is the first tee at Turnberry. That's where the action starts first thing tomorrow morning when the first players drive off. I've brought a driver of my own, and he's going to give me a quick tour of the course. So step on it, Douglas. Let's see if we can bump into. Do you know who that is?
Colin Montgomery, isn't it?
Think he's got any chance of winning this week, Doug?
Well, I think
I'll tell you what, let's ask somebody who knows a bit more about golf than you. You stick to the driving.
You know, he's trying to go under the radar saying, no, I don't think I can win again. That's rubbish. He can win again, and he can win here.
This golfing great is tipping another Scot for glory. Wait a minute, that's Alex Salmond.
I've sort of got this hankering for Richard Ramsey. I mean, he's just come in, you know, he's unprofessional. He had a difficult first period, but you don't win the United States Amateur without being a really, really good player.
Make way, ladies. TV coming through. Bit of an outsider, Richie Ramsey. Who do you fancy?
Last year's winner, Padraig Harrington.
Padraig Harrington. Doesn't fancy his own chances.
Whether they happen 3 in a row, who knows? You know, maybe I don't win this year, but I win the next 2 afterwards. I'd rather have 2 more than win 3 in a row, sort of thing. You just don't know when it's going to happen, so there's no point in piling all the pressure on one individual event. You just got to take it as there's many of these majors, and you know, keep competing and you'll get your fair share.
So if it's not going to be 3 in a row for Padraig, I wonder who is going to win it. Let's see what some punters think. Gents, who's going to win the Open?
Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods.
No chance. Well, there's a fair chance that Barry Ferguson could be a Birmingham City player by the weekend. His agent will discuss personal terms with English Premier League club tomorrow. That's after Rangers accepted a bid of over £1.5 million for their former captain. Kerdy Nidsan has more.
Showcasing Rangers' new home strip, Pedro Mendes is one midfielder the club doesn't want to sell. But Rangers have already accepted an offer from Birmingham City for their former captain.
How much of a loss would Barry be? How do you rate Barry Ferguson as a player, and if he were
He's a fantastic player. I don't know what's going on, but he's a fantastic player. Very good lad in the dressing room. Very good guy. But more than that, I can't say actually.
Ferguson was, of course, stripped of the Rangers captaincy and dropped by Scotland earlier this year, following these gestures at Hampden and a late-night drinking session while on international duty. Now 31, Ferguson began as a Rangers youth player, signed for the club in 1994 and made his debut 3 years later. His first spell at Ibrox ended when Blackburn Rovers paid £7.5 million for him in 2003. But he was back within 2 years when Alex McLeish brought him north again. The same manager could make him a Birmingham City player by the weekend. One player who has definitely left Rangers is defender Andy Webster, who will spend next season on loan at Dundee United.
The Motherwell manager Jim Gannon says he'll be happy to return home from Albania tomorrow with his European hopes still in good shape. The Fir Park side play a Europa League qualifier against FK Flamur Tari. Now that may be a relatively unfamiliar name to you and me, but the Well boss says they'll be tough opposition.
It'll be a difficult and it'll be a testing game for us, and like I said, I'm going to remind my players that, you know, to play with the same sort of passion and pride they did at Cloneffley, and to bring us the stuff that we've been working on to the game and do things professionally, and hopefully we'll get the result that we need to bring it back here and keep the game very much alive and become favourites again.
Now Livingston's Angelo Massoni says he's willing to plough a further £300,000 into the club and to step aside as chairman in favour of an elected board. However, it might be too late to stave off administration, as West Lothian Council says it's too late to stop the legal process it began 2 weeks ago to recover rent arrears on Almondvale Stadium. Well, Jackie, that's all the sport for tonight. I'll be back here at Turnberry tomorrow, so I'll maybe speak to you then.
OK, thank you very much, David. And for everyone heading to Turnberry, and of course all of us enjoying the great outdoors this summer, let's get the weather forecast from Gail.
Thank you, Jackie, and a very good evening to you. Well, it turned out to be a very turbulent day today with some nasty thunderstorms. We even had reports of a funnel cloud just to the south of Aberdeen. And we still have some of these nasty showers around tonight. The weather warning is still in place for the next couple of hours. Further heavy showers to come, but eventually through the evening these showers will gradually begin to die down. So improving, becoming a good deal drier overnight with some clear spells, but also patches of mist and fog, especially towards the northeast, from the Northern Isles right the way down to Aberdeen. Temperatures tonight around about 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. Now, tomorrow morning we'll start off the day like we did today, largely dry with some sunshine, but it really won't take long for those showers to crack off. Now, all areas again at risk of catching some showers, but I think the coastal fringes towards the northwest highlands not doing too badly. Temperatures around about 17 degrees Celsius in the sunshine. The Northern Isles will tend to stay largely dry, but there will always be the risk of some patchy mist lingering. The muddy coast also very pleasant in the sun, temperatures rising to 20 Celsius. But for inland muddy Aberdeenshire right the way down through Perth and Kinross, there will again be some nasty, slow-moving, heavy, thundery showers. The central lowlands and the southern uplands certainly not immune from the showers either, but between them there will come some brighter sunny interludes. So for the Open tomorrow at Turnberry, it is looking largely dry, just the risk of an isolated shower and fairly light winds. Now, for the rest of the country, the winds tomorrow will tend to stay fairly light, but those showers will continue right the way into the evening. And then here comes the change for Friday, a deep area of low pressure moving its way across much of England, bringing with it some outbreaks of rain. But for Scotland, we will live a bit of a charmed life here. Yes, there will be the risk of some showers, but a good deal of dry, fairly bright conditions. A touch cooler than recent days, though. Temperatures near 17 degrees Celsius. And that cool, fresher feel will linger on during Saturday, but still a good deal of dry and fairly bright weather. But for tomorrow, there will be further heavy showers to come, along with some sunny spells. That's how the weather's looking.
Gail, thank you. Now, just before 7 o'clock, a summary of tonight's top stories. Unemployment in Scotland has risen by more than 2/3 in the past year, and the latest jobs figures out today show 35,000 more people are looking for work. A backpacker from North London who disappeared in the Australian bush for almost 2 weeks has been found alive. 19-year-old Jamie Neal went for a walk in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. Well, that's the news so far tonight. I'm back at 8 and with a roundup at 10:25. And don't forget, you can get Scottish news online, on demand, on the website. But from all of us here, enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Catch seafood chef Rick Stein on The One Show next.